Welcome to the April 2022 edition of Hunt Camp Mail. I hope everybody had a fantastic Easter and was able to score during this turkey season. Turkey season was tougher than I expected this year. Public land hunters just had a hell of a time in California. The turkey's biological clock just seemed to be a little bit off this year. They were acting like February turkeys in April, in my opinion. Then we had late cold fronts and storms that moved in and out of the area during the season, and that also put birds off a little bit. I took some footage during my turkey hunts and may or may not make a video with them. I still have one more day to turkey hunt this Sunday, so we'll see. I may or may not make a turkey hunting video of my turkey hunting this year. My hiring a guide and being a good client video was pretty well received, for the exception of a couple of disgruntled hunters that think guides shouldn't exist at all. But most of the responses I got to that video were pretty positive and constructive. The only reason I did that hunting guide video was because my mailbox is just always loaded with questions from new hunters and anglers struggling with learning the ropes. So I did myself a favor by producing that video because I can redirect those questions to that individual video. I also did my first episode of Movie Night with Desert Dog. It seems that movie night brought back a lot of fond memories for the elder hunters in our group and reinvigorated many of the younger hunters in the group. When I say our group, I mean that. I have an awesome subscriber base, and many of you have become like a digital family to me. And as my channel slowly grows, it's been nice meeting some of you in person while I'm out and about and helping hundreds of you through email. I received some really good questions this month about a variety of interesting topics. If I don't answer your question in this episode of Hunt Camp Mail, check your email because I sent you all personal responses if I'm not responding in Hunt Camp Mail. Everyone's questions got answered this month because I finally got caught up with my mail. So let's get to April's mail. Our first question this month is from Zach from Hoover, Alabama. Zach wrote, I'm loading 30-06 with TTSXs and H4350. What is the best primer to use? And do you like match primers better than regular primers? Well, Zach, the best primer, I think, for the 30-06 is just a standard large rifle primer. You could play around with Magnum primers a little bit, especially if you're using a ball powder. But with stick powders like your H4350, a standard large rifle primer is probably all you'll ever need. And I'm kind of torn between the differences of regular and match primers. I tested 6.5 Creedmoor using both regular and match primers from Federal and CCI. And in that very unscientific test, my most accurate groups came from standard primers, not match primers. And even more surprising to me was that SDs and ESs were nearly identical between match and regular primers. My conclusion was that there really wasn't a difference with that particular load using primers of the same brand. In reality, match primers are pretty much the exact same thing as standard primers. They're made with the same components on the same production line by the same people. The only difference is that match primers go through a higher degree of quality control inspection of the finished product. With modern production equipment, that additional inspection step may or may not be necessary, but I personally couldn't tell the difference. You will see a drastic difference when you're switching brands of primers, but the difference between standard and match primers of the same brand is very small or unnoticeable. I've won several matches with standard primers, and for a hunting load, it really doesn't matter in my opinion. And our next question is from Daniel, and Daniel didn't state where he was from. Daniel wrote, I came across your X-Bolt review and listened to your opinion on the platform. I'm looking at two different X-Bolts in 308. One has a threaded barrel with a muzzle brake on it. Is it advantageous to have a brake on a bolt gun that is mostly intended to be used for hunting? The other one has a stainless barrel on it that looks great. Basically, I would like your advice on going with a stainless barrel or going with a blued threaded barrel with a muzzle brake. Well, Daniel, you definitely don't want a muzzle brake on a hunting rifle. The only thing a threaded barrel is good for from a hunting perspective is if you're going to run a sound suppressor, which I wish I could do, but they're illegal in my state and a lot of the countries I hunt in. So it comes down to whether you want a stainless or a chromoly barrel. Chromoly steel is stronger than stainless steel, but stainless is more corrosion resistant. But both of them are great barrel materials. Most people tend to prefer stainless because they feel like it gives them an added level of protection from the elements. And our next question is from Trevor from Houston, Texas. Trevor asked, when you set up to hunt turkeys, do you work the wind like you do with other animals? It's actually a good question. But no, you don't bother working the wind when you're hunting turkeys. Like most birds, turkeys have a very weak sense of smell. Scientific studies have basically shown that a turkey's sense of smell is almost non-existent. There's an old saying that states if turkeys could smell, you'd never get close enough to kill one. And I believe that old saying. You know, when hunting turkeys, you're more concerned with staying quiet, hidden, and motionless. Turkeys just have amazing eyesight, which is multiple times better than any mammal you're ever going to hunt. So with any bird hunting, the only time you care about the wind is when you want your dogs to find birds like quail and pheasant while you're upland hunting. Wind doesn't matter at all for turkey hunting, you know, unless you want to take advantage of how sound carries in the wind when you're calling in the turkeys. And our next question is from Fred from Savannah, Georgia. Fred wrote, after watching your hunting authors video last year, I ordered almost all of Jack O'Connor's books and just finished reading Confessions of a Gun Editor. O'Connor was an interesting and intelligent man, and it's obvious that he loved to write. In the modern digital age, do you think a man like Jack O'Connor would have a place? It's a great question. Honestly, I think it would be hard for Jack to exist in modern gun culture if he was alive today. Jack had a very low tolerance for stupidity and ignorance. You know, in general, Jack only had to deal with stupidity and ignorance from a few of the letters that were mailed to him from fans and, you know, from maybe some other magazine editors and, you know, and from a small number of other gun writers. But he really didn't have to deal with the public to the extent like a writer would in the digital age. And, you know, Jack deemed many of his readers as Bubis Americanus, you know, and luckily didn't actually have to interact with his readers very much at all. This lack of interaction probably kept a guy like Jack sane because he didn't have to deal with his fans or his critics. But the modern internet is an endless and overflowing depository of bad information, ignorance, and criticisms supported by millions of faceless people who can't be held accountable for what they say. Could you imagine Jack O'Connor making a YouTube video, then going through the comment section of that video? He would absolutely come unglued. Can you imagine Jack O'Connor watching YouTube channels like Backfire, Best of the West, or Keith Warren? He'd just lose it. You know, unfortunately, this is the modern state of the hunting profession, and I personally believe that Jack would want no part of that. Now there are some things that I think Jack would like about the modern age, mainly that the claims people make can easily be verified on the internet nowadays. In Jack's time, before the internet, most of his colleagues in the gun writing world were professional bullshitters. I mean, they lied a lot. They told a lot of tall tales. From fables of killing mule deer at 600 yards with a revolver to stories of near-death experiences from just about every animal in the wild. Most gun writers of Jack's day were just full of crap. And he hated that they got away with it. But you can't get away with that today because it's too easy to research and verify everything anybody says or people that they hunted with. I think Jack would welcome that aspect of modern technology. But in the end, Jack was of a class of gentlemen hunters that are almost non-existent in today's world. I believe he'd definitely have a hard time finding a place in today's mainstream hunting culture. That was a great question, even though my answer was just pure speculation. And our next question is from Mark from Vero Beach, Florida. Mark wrote, I hunt hogs and fish for bass, but that's the extent of my outdoor activities. Honestly, those hobbies are getting boring after 30 years of doing the same thing. I really want to change things up and get into saltwater fly fishing. With the Bahamas and the Keys so close to me, I want to start fly fishing for bonefish. I plan to buy an 8-weight Nautilus reel, mainly to support a local Florida company. But choosing a rod that's under $600 is confusing. Everybody gives me different advice, and the experts want me to buy $1,000 rods like the Scott and Sage Salt. For a new fly angler going mainly for bonefish, what rod would you recommend? Well, Mark, I think Nautilus makes great reels. I use the hell out of my Nautilus CCF X2. I use it as an 8 and a 9-weight reel. So you picked a great reel, and an 8-weight is a solid all-around choice for what you want to do. Sure, you could probably handle those little Keys bonefish with a 6-weight, but an 8-weight lets you handle the wind and then, occasionally target bigger fish. So the 8-weight is so versatile, and you can use it on anything from jacks in the Keys, bull redfish in Louisiana, or during the silver salmon run in Alaska. An 8-weight travels. On your rod selection, I think your biggest consideration is going to be your level of casting skill. Most high-end saltwater rods, like the Sage Salt or the Winston Salt Air, are super fast actions with a very, very stiff tip on them. These were made to punch heavy flies into wind, and they require a lot of skill to use and a perfect haul technique. So you have to really have that down. They're for more experienced casters. A soft presentation, though, for bonefish on the flats is more important, I think, than casting distance. I've used the Sage Salt, and it's just too stiff for a beginner, in my opinion, especially for, somebody like you that's just starting out. Even a more reasonably priced Sage like the Maverick is still too stiff. And even the budget-minded Redington Predator is just too much rod for a beginner, I think. In my opinion, the Thomas & Thomas Zone is the best beginner to intermediate fly rod for bonefish in its price range. It's 100% made in the USA and just packed with features. This rod is under $600, but it has all the features and performance like a rod that should cost over $1,000. It's got a really good backbone on it, but it has a tip section that is a lot more forgiving than those other rods that you're looking at. It's also one of the most accurate rods I think I've ever used for bonefish. So I highly recommend the Thomas & Thomas Zone. And our next question is from Sean from British Columbia, Canada. Sean wrote, "Me and my wife just turned 25 and we are taking our first vacation together this year. I'm trying to get my wife into hunting like your wife. We are currently trying to decide on a vacation this fall. My wife gave me the choice between going on a cruise or going on a hunt. Of course, I'm picking the hunt. What type of hunt should we do?" Stop what you're doing right there, Sean. It's a trap.
It's a trap.
You're young, Sean, and obviously lack the ability to read between the lines like other married men can. Your wife wasn't asking you a question. She was testing you to see where your priorities lie. Even when you get older, you sometimes fall into these wife traps. 3 weeks ago, my wife asked me, "Do you want to see a movie this evening when you get off of work, honey?" And, I said, "Sure, a movie sounds great." And she said, "Would you rather see Morbius or that new Sandra Bullock movie, The Lost City?" And I thought about it for a second and I replied, "Oh, that Morbius movie looks pretty awesome. Let's go see that." Then my wife responded, "Oh, so we have to watch what you want." So even though I was clearly given a choice, in reality, I had no choice, and neither do you. Since you and your wife are going on your first ever vacation together, just go on the cruise. You already live in British Columbia, so you could do the hunting thing anytime because you have great hunting available locally to you there. So make the wife happy and do what she really wants to do for your first vacation together. Because the question of wives hunting comes up so frequently, I actually did a video on this that I plan to release next month, so stay tuned for that. And our next question is from Nigel from Lompoc, California, one of my favorite places. Nigel wrote, "I love your channel, Desert Dog. It's great to be able to relate to an experienced and ethical hunter here in Central California. As you know, I live on ground zero for turkey hunting in California, and I love hunting them. Since hearing gobblers is so important, what digital ear protection do you use for turkey hunting?" Yeah. You're going to hate my answer, Nigel, because I'm a very poor example when it comes to this. This is one occasion where I'll tell you to do the opposite of what I do. I want to refer you to a video I made, I believe it was last year, called Hearing Protection for Hunters, and it might clarify my position a little bit more, but hearing the faint, distant gobbles of turkeys is extremely important while you're turkey hunting. And what's just as important as hearing the gobble is knowing what direction that gobble came from. That fact alone is what determines where we set up and how we orient our gun when the turkey gets close to us. We need to know where that bird is, and locating the sound is the only way to do that. And electronic ears really enhance hearing while protecting your ears from damage, from hearing loss. But unfortunately, they ruin your spatial awareness because they prevent sound localization. So you won't be able to determine where the birds are with your electronic ears in. One might argue that you could simply leave the hearing protection off, then put it on before you make your shot. Unfortunately, that really won't work with turkey hunting in most instances, because when you're turkey hunting, you have to be totally motionless by the time a turkey comes into view. Movement is your worst enemy while turkey hunting, and you just won't kill turkeys if they see you moving. So as of now, I don't wear hearing protection while I turkey hunt. I really should, but I don't. Once again, I'm a really bad example when it comes to this. And our next question is from Avery in North Bend, Washington. Avery wrote, I'm just now considering hunting and fishing as a way to provide organic, healthy meat to my diet. I latched onto your channel after watching your hunting ethics video. You aren't loud, obnoxious, politically blinded, and full of toxic masculinity like other hunters on YouTube seem to be. Your Hunt Camp Mail episodes are a real treat, except for your constant contempt towards communism. Communism would definitely bring us into unity with our natural resources, unlike our failed capitalist system, which seems to have failed wildlife in this country altogether. Ugh. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for enjoying my channel, Avery. And rather than being rude and using my special button, I'll attempt to respectfully educate you with some facts, so continue watching with an open mind. Countries living under the thumb of communism or stringent socialism have the largest levels of environmental destruction, pollution, and human suffering on the planet. Communism was the second leading cause of death in the 20th century, behind disease. And don't forget that 1/3 of all the pollution on the planet right now comes from one communist country. By contrast, the North American conservation model that Canada and the United States have adopted have been the most successful large-scale conservation effort in human history. This type of multi-jurisdictional model that relies on funding from hunters and anglers is a triumph of capitalism and would never occur under a communist regime. And lastly, I challenge you to tell me of one communist country that's ever been successful. Well, you can't, because it always ends bad, and it always ends bad because of human nature itself. In order for communism to take hold, a government needs a brutal dictator or a hardline, tyrannical one-party government to subjugate the population. Also, in order for communism to work, citizens have to be completely stripped of their individualism and turned into robots or worker bees, which, as you probably know, is counter to human nature. I know that you live in Washington State and you're probably surrounded by well-intentioned communists and socialists, but those people are the problem, not the solution. You like my channel because I'm not a slave to any ideology. I believe in freedom and I support a healthy environment. Yet you adhere to an ideology that enslaves you, destroys freedom, and ruins the environment. There is no benefit to communism, unless you're the one in charge. Our next question is from Oscar from the Florida Keys. Oscar wrote, I'm a retired U.S. Navy submarine captain who is an avid hunter and firearm enthusiast. I wanted to respectfully request that you create a video about the African safari unknowns. Things like safari costs, tips to be distributed and to whom, and how much should the tips be. I would also like to know what I should pay for a hunt, both dangerous game and plains game, and how long should the hunt be, 1 week or 2? On a non-related question, what was your old channel and why did you lose it? Also, it would be great if you started a Rumble account. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for your service, Oscar. Submarine crews are the most intelligent men and women in our military, bar none. They truly are an underappreciated asset. Regarding your first question, I might do a safari video in the future, but in the meantime, I just posted a video on hiring a guide that includes some great advice on giving tips. You should check that out. To your second question and point, my old YouTube channel was demonetized, videos were muted, and the entire channel was eventually shut down. YouTube started muting and demonetizing a large percentage of videos in reaction to huge lawsuits that they were incurring. Then about, 2016 or 2017, YouTube went crazy trying to purge itself of anything that was deemed inappropriate for children because of lawsuits also. And hunting channels got hit hard during that time. After posting a video that included footage of a boar being field dressed, YouTube put my channel in jail. And after that, I went ahead and started a new channel, which you're watching today. And nowadays, when YouTube shuts down your channel, there's a process you can go through to try to get recourse on the issue and resolve it. But that didn't exist back in the day. So when YouTube targeted your channel, you were doomed. But luckily, it's not that bad nowadays, even though YouTube is still difficult sometimes to navigate as a creator. But Rumble just isn't as user-friendly to creators like YouTube is. You know, the search function is even horrible for viewers on Rumble. You have to sort through pages of political crap to watch videos on any subject. It's even hard to find people's account on Rumble so you can watch their videos. I created a Rumble account over a year ago, and my most watched video only has 42 views. In an entire year on Rumble, I haven't made $1 in revenue, probably because I refuse to give Rumble ownership of all of my videos across all platforms. I mean, they're my video. I'm not going to give them ownership of it. I think Rumble is a complete waste of time for creators who want control over their property. And just YouTube is 1,000 times better for that. It's 1,000 times better for the creator. You know, if you look at, for instance, Mr. Gun and Gear's channel, for example, the same video that gets 400 views on Rumble gets over 150,000 views on YouTube. Basically, the only videos that do good on Rumble are conservative political videos. In my opinion, it really is a waste of time for hunting and fishing content. But something better does need to come along and replace YouTube. You know, we need a model that matches the pre-2013 YouTube model, which was great and everybody loved. YouTube is really getting greedy with creators these days. Most channels are making half the revenue today that they made 3 years ago, even though the channel is twice the size. You know, as I've stated many times, YouTube will eventually be the victim of its own policies. And our next question is from John in Madera, California. John wrote, "A hand loader that can't work up a load properly is like a cowboy that can't ride a horse. No hacks in this game. I started hand loading in 2007 from old manuals. They all stressed a good system and process like you mentioned. I'd like to possibly make loads for 308 from Stayball 6.5, but can't find data. I developed a good load from published data for my 7mm 08. Can I use the same data to develop a 308 load since they are very similar cartridges?" Don't do it, John. I highly recommend that you don't do that. 308 and 7mm 08 may have the same parent case, but the case volume to bore ratio on the 7mm 08 is a lot different than the 308, and as a result will require different burn rate characteristics from a powder. Of course, you know, bullet weight also plays a big part in this. But I ran the calculations for you, and in my opinion, Stayball 6.5 is slightly too slow of powder for the 308 Winchester. This is probably why you can't find any load data for that combination, so I really can't help you with that one. What I generally find, based on case volume to bore ratio numbers, is that powders that are great for 223 are generally good for the 308 win too. The case volume to bore ratio and the desired bullet weight are the two main factors that make a powder good or bad for any particular cartridge. And Stayball 6.5 looks like a bad match for the 308 Winchester. Now we have a question from a favorite of the channel and Desert Dog Outdoors official bloke of the year, Mick from Australia. Mick wrote, "Cheers, bloke, and I hope your stalker gets the help he needs. Maybe he just wants to jump in that hotel jacuzzi with sexy Desert Dog." Mick, my stalker definitely wanted jacuzzi time with me. I can guarantee it. Maybe I'll invite him over to that German hunt and I can slip away during naked time and he can move on to bigger and better things. Or perhaps I'll send him over to Ron Spomer so he can spoon with the ultimate gilf of the hunting community. But then we'd have to change his name to Ron Spooner. Since my last hunt camp mail, I haven't heard from him again. Maybe he noticed that I only have 16,000 subscribers, so he moved on to a better host. But here's to you, Virgil the Stalker. May you find happiness in your future stalking endeavors. And our next question is from Haagen from Mexico City. Yes, that's the same European Haagen that's a regular on this channel. Apparently now he's in Mexico City. Haagen asked, "This might seem like an odd question, but as a graduate in history, I can't help but often reminisce about the abundance of game that our planet used to harbor before us humans spread all over the earth. So if you could go back in time to any point you wish for an extended safari-like hunt, to which period would you travel? Thank you for all the content you produce for the public. You and your channel really fill an important niche between the tactical operators, long-range guys, preppers, and review shills." Haagen always has the best questions. And it's crazy that you asked this because it's something that I've actually pondered myself before. Be mindful that phrase that you used, "before us humans spread all over the earth," could easily be taken out of context because the most devastating extinction events in world history happened before humans even walked this planet. Mother Nature tends to wipe the earth clean of most living creatures from time to time, and that'll happen regardless of the presence of humans. As a geology student, I tend to look at things in geologic time and believe that the time of humans is pretty insignificant in nature's overall scheme of things. Having said that, I definitely wouldn't want to hunt during the Cretaceous period. The Cretaceous brought new meaning to the concept of dangerous game. Walking around on Pangea during the Jurassic, that doesn't sound like fun for a human being either. And as a fisherman, I wouldn't even want to be anywhere near water in either of those periods. To your question, I think I'd love to hunt the Pleistocene epoch. Cave bears, woolly rhinos, giant deer, and mammoths would have been a thrill to hunt and eat, I think. Admittedly, I wouldn't want to take on a short-faced bear with a spear, but it would be a thrill to get close with my Model 70. It'd be awesome to roam the earth back then, before climactic and geologic upheaval removed those species from this planet. And our next question is from Austin from Pennsylvania. Austin wrote, "I had an idea to build a Remington 700 chambered in a dangerous game caliber. After hearing you say the factory extractor tends to break on high recoiling cartridges and is prone to wearing out anyway, I decided if I do build one, I would buy a PTG bolt with the M16 extractor cut and dual ejectors. I would also install a 3-position safety." I'm going to cut your letter off right there, Austin. I watched a Larry Potterfield rifle build video years ago, And I won't bore you with the details of Larry's video, but he took a Remington 700 and spent thousands of dollars and countless hours of time turning that rifle into a Winchester Model 70 Safari Express, which still wasn't better than a Model 70. Larry Potterfield is a smart guy, and I think you are too, but even smart people often ignore simple and effective solutions. Just go buy a Winchester Model 70 Safari Express if that's the features you want. You can hunt with it right out of the box with no work, or you could do like I do and just give the stock a professional bedding job. There really is no reason to go beyond that. And our next question is from Patrick from Montana. Patrick wrote, I've been a professional guide for almost 20 years in the state of Montana. I guide fishing clients in my drift boat and spend the entire hunting season guiding elk and deer hunts. It's been my full-time job, for the exception of selling firewood for a little extra money. Your video on hiring guides and being a good client just condensed 20 years of experience into one little 20-minute video. You are spot on with your advice. As a guide, I've seen the games that guide services play and have seen countless lazy guides come and go in this industry. Your advice for clients on realistic expectations should be mandatory viewing. I hope that video gets 1 million views. If you don't mind, I would like to put a link to that video on my site and urge new clients to watch it. Please contact me when you come back through my area so we can get some lines in the water. And he left me his contact information. Well, Patrick, thanks for the awesome letter. I'm actually going to be in your area of Montana the first week of August to handle some personal business, and I'll see if I can make some time to pull on some fish for you or just have a beer and a burger. You absolutely have my permission to use that video. You don't even have to ask. Our next question is from Trent from Canberra, Australia. Trent wrote, one of my favorite rifles is the Ruger 77, a 357 Magnum bolt-action carbine with an 18-inch barrel. It's such a handy little carbine, weighing very little with a scope. Now my question. I currently use jacketed soft points. I don't know much about pistol projectiles and their effectiveness when fired from a carbine. How effective are hollow point ammunition on game, pigs, small deer, and kangaroos, when fired from a carbine? In your personal opinion, what is the best pistol projectile type for hunting with the pistol caliber carbine? Well, I've taken many pigs over the years with the 44 Magnum. It works, but nowhere near as good as a proper rifle cartridge in my mind. Most pigs I shot with the handgun required a little bit of tracking afterwards versus immediate death with my 30-06 most of the time. Most pigs killed with handguns in the USA are very close finishing shots after the pigs are ran down with dogs, or people shooting pigs over bait at very close ranges in places like Texas. But also, I'd say pistol caliber carbines are also popular in the same circumstances. Since velocity and thus energy is so low with handgun cartridges, even out of a carbine, bullet construction is extremely important. Before the lead ban took place in my state, I used Hornady XTPs and thought they were a great hunting bullet in my 44 and 357. After the lead ban, I switched to the Barnes XPB, and it performed pretty good in a handgun cartridge, I thought. But personally, I've never really liked pistol caliber carbines for hunting, especially when a 30-30 is the same weight and length. My goal when harvesting an animal is to put it down as swiftly and humanely as possible. So I always stack the odds in favor of achieving that goal. And our next question is from Girov. And I don't know if I'm mispronouncing your name or not, Girov, so Please accept my apology if I am. Girov asked, regarding the hiring a guide video, is a guide service the same thing as an outfitter? What exactly is a guide service? It's actually a very good question. A guide service is a company or corporation where several or many different guides who are employees of that company. A fly fishing guide service might have 30 guides and 30 boats at its disposal. A guide service that does pack trips might have a dozen guides, lots of horses and mules that the company owns. Many independent guides are also contracted by guide services. When a client books a hunting or fishing trip with a guide service, the service usually decides which guide you're going to get based on availability or other factors that I won't get into. The bottom line is that a guide service makes most of its money by selling guided trips on a large scale. The term outfitter originally referred to a retail store where people could buy equipment for hunting, fishing, mountaineering, camping, or adventure travel. They basically outfitted you with gear for your trip. Abercrombie and Fitch was the most famous early American outfitter and supplied gear for hunting trips and expeditions for famous people like Teddy Roosevelt, Richard Byrd, and even Ernest Hemingway. They were the precursor to modern sporting goods stores. In modern times, places like Cabela's are the most popular outfitters. Over time, many of these outfitters started arranging guided trips with independent guides, and they took a booking fee off the top for profit. These essentially became like a one-stop shop. This became so common that the word outfitter was often used in the same manner as the word guide service. So in today's world, the term outfitter can mean a sporting goods store, a guide service, or both. But it's probably best to use the term guide service if that's what it is, especially if the guides are employees of that company. And our next question is from Tom in British Columbia, Canada. Tom wrote, my wife and I watch every one of your videos when they come out. My wife gets really excited when she sees Becca hunting and fishing. Maybe you can get Becca to do some videos. Thank you for the compliments, and I think you just made Becca blush. Unfortunately, Becca is very camera shy. Even though Becca is, very outgoing and a sociable person, when she stares into that camera, she gets completely silent and tends to get stage fright. For some of us, being on camera is natural, but for others, it's just not so easy. But Becca is responsible for most of the great camera work on this channel, and filming a hunt is one of the most difficult things to film, in my opinion, and she does a great job. And even though she isn't enthusiastic about being on camera, she's usually the one behind the camera, and she's always the drone pilot. And our next question is from Ben in Ventura, California. Ben wrote, I watch many YouTube channels about guns and hunting. I would say that about half of the viewers disagree with their viewpoints and half agree. Why do most of your viewers agree with your viewpoints? What makes you different? I have many theories, but it would be interesting to hear your opinion. Well, I don't know if my theory will match your theory, but here it goes. Maybe I get a lot of positive feedback on my channel because of the way I present the content, or maybe people react positively to the content itself. And my viewers know that I don't do those stupid unboxing videos. I only review products that I personally use myself, and I try to actually put them through pretty vigorous use before I'll review them on my channel. I'm also not financially or emotionally invested in any products, and I don't shoot factory ammo into fruits or clay blocks. And, I also think I cover material in a way that gives my viewers logical and practical comparisons. And, not to toot my own horn, but I think that some of my video ideas have been pretty innovative. Have you ever noticed that a lot of these channels are doing their own versions of Hunt Camp Mail now? So even though my channel is small and independent, I feel like a leader rather than a follower. And I think many people see that, and maybe the authenticity of my channel gives me some degree of credibility or likability. I don't know. I hope that matches your theory. And our last question is from Jeff in Orange, California. Jeff wrote, in the last Hunt Camp Mail, you stated that an arbor press is a waste of time for hunting ammo. I was told that an arbor press is the only way to guarantee minimal runout. Why wouldn't you want your hunting ammo to be as accurate as possible? Well, maybe I should have clarified my answer in more detail in that last Hunt Camp Mail, but I've seen single stage presses in the past that did induce horrible runout while seeding. The worst I've ever seen was a Hornaday lock and load press, but a good single stage press like a Mex Markman or a Forster coax will seat bullets just as precisely as my arbor press. What I love about the arbor press is the feel that you get using it, meaning if something isn't right, you instantly know with that arbor press. But I make ammo on a single stage press that shoots great. So I really don't use my arbor press that much anymore, especially since I don't really compete more than a couple of times a year anymore. Personally though, I think that case sizing causes more runout than seeding. If you want to reduce runout, you need to start with better brass prep, in my opinion, not an arbor press. This goes full circle back to why I use expander mandrels. So if you have money to burn, get an arbor press, but you might find that money is better spent on good brass. Well, that wraps up another edition of Hunt Camp Mail. I really enjoyed this month's questions, even the ones that I didn't answer on the air. In case you didn't notice, the bullshit button didn't get used one time. And trust me, that's a good thing. I also want to thank Frank from Florida, Jim from the UK, Kent, William, and Mario from Arizona for your kind words and well wishes. As usual, here's some memes for the month of April. Please stay tuned for more great videos headed your way next month, some of which have been requested for a long time. You can reach me with any questions or comments at desertdogoutdoors@gmail.com. As always, thank you for watching and good hunting.